Welcome back to Sarah's Storytime. I hope you enjoyed last week's Cinderella. Now this week is a debut and it's quite a scary one for me. It's a little bit scary because it's one of my own stories. Now this is a work in progress, so this may be like part one. I'm going to see what happens with it. But if you'd like to grab a cup of tea and a piece of cake, or whatever takes your fancy, have a seat and come and listen to the story of how I helped the leprechaun find his pot of gold. Once upon a time, when I was very, very young, we went to visit family friends in Ireland. Now, they live in County Wicklow, near Dublin. And they have a lovely estate, and they have a wood that's right next to the that's right next to their house. Now it was around Christmas time, and my mum and I were gathering fir cones and the like because we were going to make a Christmas arrangement. My mum had gone in, and I was still picking up bits and pieces, just having a look and seeing what I could find for the next day. Just then, I heard a noise, somewhere a little bit further beyond my line of vision. And so, I crept forward. The sight that I beheld was incredible. In the middle of the forest, in the middle of this little copse, was a fairy ring. Now, the reason, for anyone who has not seen a fairy ring, the way you can tell, for starters, the grass inside the ring was green. Everywhere else, it was the middle of winter, and it was dark, and it was brown, and yet there's this ring of green. As if something magical was keeping it alive. And round the edge were tiny little toadstools. Now anybody who knows any kind of myth and legend knows that that constitutes a fairy ring. And so I stood there amazed. A fairy ring in the middle of County Wicklow? Just then, I heard the noise again, somewhere off to my left. I peered. I couldn't quite see what it was. It was small. And so I sat and I waited. Fairly soon, a little figure crept out from underneath some bark. Now, if any of you have seen a leprechaun, you don't need to tell me what they look. Don't need me to tell you what they look like. But for those who've never seen a leprechaun, let me describe him. He was about yay high and had on a very nice, smart green waistcoat and a top hat, also green. He had a frown on his face, and his ears were huge and pointed, as if they could hear for miles around, almost like a bat's sonar. As I sat there, he crept forward towards the fairy ring. The moment he got into the fairy ring, I spoke. "What are you looking for?" He froze, like a rabbit caught in the headlights. "But you can see me." "Yeah, I can see you. But you're not supposed to be able to see me." "Really? Why not?" "What are you doing here?" "I was picking fir cones. It's the middle of winter. What? Quite seriously, what are you doing? What are you doing?" And why are you going to the fairy ring? But he sat there. He looked at me with a very blank expression on his face. I'm waiting for the fairy queen. Okay, why are you waiting for the fairy queen? At that moment, my question was partly answered. Because he needs some help, came a voice, kind of by the corner of my ear. I went to look, but there was nothing there. I turned back round and saw a beautiful, young looking fairy with golden wings and a crown on her head. Do you want to help? Yes, please, I said. What's up? I've seen you before, haven't I? I nodded in reply. I'm pretty sure that you have. So what's up? I asked, given that the leprechaun was still sitting there kind of stunned. At this point he found his voice. But how can she see us? She's a believer, replied the fairy queen. But how can she help us find it? Because she's a believer, she replied. Meanwhile, I was sitting there, rather perplexed. I still didn't quite know what was going on, and my face said as much. The queen turned to me with a smile on her face. Our dear friend here has lost his pot of gold. Well, he hasn't exactly lost it. He knows where it is, but he needs some help. Okay, where is it? It's in the Cavern of Lost Souls. The name alone filled me with dread. Okay, how do we get there? Well, first off, you cross the Bridge of Sorrow. You travel through the valley. Just the valley, I replied. No, sorry, I forgot the name. The Valley of Doubt. And then, finally, you have to get across the Chasm of Fear. That sounds very cheerful, I said, rather doubtfully. Oh, don't worry, they're not as bad as they sound. Really? Really? All you have to do, as you well know, my dear, is believe. Oh! I replied, suddenly realising what she meant. Okay, I'll help. Are you coming with me? I asked the leprechaun. Yep, you'll need a guide. Really? Yep, we need to go in the right direction to start with. Now, before you go, said the fairy queen, interrupting slightly, there are two things that I will give you. One is this, and she handed me a map, which showed all the locations we needed to go through, and the other is this. She handed me a biscuit. It was about yay big and almost looked like a coin. I went to bite it. I said, no, don't, not yet. You'll understand. You'll know when to use it. Okay, I said, but can I go and... No. Really? Really, replied the fairy queen. And so, we set off. We came to the Bridge of Doubt. Yes. We came to the Bridge of Doubt. The water raged so high that it almost covered the bridge. The bridge itself was a wobbly, rickety bridge that crossed the chasm. It looked like it could almost fall over. Nevertheless, we steeled ourselves. The Leprechaun's name, by the way, was Barry. He carried on talking to me after we left and had properly introduced himself. Now that he understood who I was, he had full confidence in me. I looked at the bridge and placed one foot on it, then leaped back because it creaked. "Have faith, my dear," he said. "You know what to do." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I began to put one foot after the other, focusing on the other side. I could hear the waves beneath me, coming so close as to almost make the bridge rock. I kept walking, focused on the other side. Suddenly I looked down. I couldn't help it. The bridge bucked so much. And I looked down. I saw the fall. I panicked. I started breathing. I felt a hand on my shoulder. And another hand in mine. A verse popped into my head. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Your rod and staff, they comfort me. I felt the rod. I stood taller. I knew who I was, and I knew who was with me. I kept walking forward, step by step, holding the staff, holding his hand, keeping going. Then all of a sudden I was on the other side. I couldn't believe it. I looked back. "See how far you've come," he said. I smiled. "Thank you." "My pleasure," he replied, then disappeared again. Barry had managed to cross the bridge. He had wings, so he flew, which I thought was a little bit cheating, but I allowed him it. Before us stood the Valley of Doubt. I stood at the entrance, looking in. I couldn't see anything. And yet, I knew that there'd always be somebody with me. The end. Now, as I said, this is an experiment, and yes, I know that I got the bridge wrong. The bridge is not the Bridge of Doubt, the bridge is something else. I will put an edit in the video. I'm sure once I look through it, I'll be able to remember. I really hope that you enjoy this. I'm going to probably do it about once every couple of months, because that's the amount of time that it takes to work up the courage to actually be able to do the next bit, probably. But I promise you, I will carry this one on. Please, quite seriously on this one, please do comment, rate and subscribe, because I really want your feedback on this one. Are you enjoying it? Are you enjoying it? What do you think? what things do you think I could change? What things do you think I could keep the same? Yeah. Do you kind of see where it's going? And yeah. Next week involves a lot of red and wolves and stick puppets. Incidentally, actually no, next week doesn't involve any of that. I completely forgot to mention. Next week there will not be a video. By this point, by that point I will have moved. I will have moved. I have no idea where I'm moving to still. I will attempt to let you know as soon as I know, but I will have moved out, and so yeah. But I will keep you guys posted, but there will not be a video next week. There will be a video the week after, and that will involve a lot of red and wolves and stick puppets.